Former President Thabo Mbeki is today expected to address the Department of International Relations' inaugural Aziz Pahad Peace, Security and Human Rights Dialogue. In fact, the event will focus on the progress made since the end of apartheid, highlighting the importance of constitutionalism in fostering social unity and nation building. Watching the story is SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo, who joins us now from Pretoria. And Khayelihle, all of this, of course, taking place against the backdrop of interesting geopolitical developments, for lack of a better term. It'll also be quite interesting to hear what else the former president has to say, given the remarks he made about South Africa and the US on Friday.
Well, certainly, and an exceptionally important time here at our Tambo building. As you know, that when you talk about a fine diplomat, and also a man who possessed the qualities really that are really emblematic of what a good ambassador should be, Mr. Aziz Pahad. You know, you look at his story, how he fought against apartheid, how he spent a considerable amount of time away from home. He came back to South Africa, served as a deputy minister for what was known at the time as a Foreign Affairs Department. But of course, quite a number of dynamics now in terms of the geopolitical developments. But really to look at the significance of this particular inaugural dialogue, we're joined by the SABC's international editor, Sophie Mogwena. So once again, Sophie, let's look at the significance of today. I mean, we talk about Aziz Pahad, we talk about his diplomatic acumen, you know, what he did for this country, but just the importance of today.
I think it's quite important because, as you pointed out, it comes at a time where the foreign policy of South Africa is under spotlight. And I think him having been a champion of crafting of the foreign policy that dates back to the tenure of President Nelson Mandela, then Thabo Mbeki, but also in exile. You'd recall that these two individuals, former South African President Thabo Mbeki, Aziz Pahad, were in exile in the United Kingdom, and they worked very close with the then ANC President Oliver Tambo, who was deployed outside the country after ANC feared that he might also be arrested or something might happen to him, so that there was international pressure and continuation of the struggle to emancipate South Africa. And therefore they worked very hard outside the country, and that's where they started with the crafting of what South Africa should look like when it comes to international engagement or the foreign policy. And therefore you are correct, he is the man, master brain behind with others in crafting the foreign policy. And particularly when you look at this critical juncture where South Africa and the US has got challenges. It was Aziz Pahad, when he was the Foreign Affairs Deputy Minister, who was sent to Iraq when there was a debate whether the NATO forces, Allied forces, America and the United Kingdom, whether they should work together to invade Iraq. He even went there with the scientists from South Africa assigned by the then South African President Thabo Mbeki to go and check, and with the inspectors, whether there were weapons of mass destruction. When they came back, they presented a report. You would recall Madiba very angry, the former President Nelson Mandela, after that announcement that America and its allies were going to invade Iraq, and that led to the killing of Saddam Hussein. So he was there, he has been there, he was in and out of the country all the time, most of the time, doing work on behalf of South Africa as a diplomat, the Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, working with the then Minister, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. So I think it is an opportune moment to reflect, particularly at this moment when South Africa's foreign policy is on the spotlight, but also, as you pointed out earlier on, what is a diplomat and how should a diplomat conduct him or herself?
Sophie, still just on the issue of the conduct of the diplomats. We know at this point, South Africa and the US, things are not really quite good. A lot of things are being are said about resetting, about recalibrating. And we had former President Mbeki speaking about the conduct of a diplomat in a hosting country from a receiving state. Take us through. I mean, what can we expect from him in terms of those very key issues, especially given the importance of South Africa and the US bilateral relations?
I think because you'll have diplomats here and those who aspire to be diplomats, the analysts on international relations, he will again touch on the qualities of a career diplomat. You know, sometimes you get someone being posted as a diplomat or an ambassador or a high commissioner because a person is being redeployed. There's no space in the political space. And therefore, that person is actually a politician. And at times, he is or she is going to find himself not being able to navigate the two issues, being a politician and a diplomat. And therefore, I think he will remind the audience who is a diplomat, as South Africa is currently looking at appointing an ambassador to the United States of America. And we are told that 8 names are doing the rounds, and this time around it will be a career diplomat. In other words, to get someone who's a professional diplomat to avoid a situation where a person gets to talk politics, which is not a domain of a diplomat, because politics must be handled by a head of state or the minister. A diplomat must just build relations.
Sophie, before we wrap this up, right here in Zimbabwe, quite a very big day. The uprising, a lot of people saying that it reminds them of 2017. What can we read from the situation? Because even here in Pretoria, we do understand there'll be a demonstration of some sort.
Well, there has been a movement pushing for this day as part of a day to protest in relation to what's happening in Zimbabwe. We've received information and visuals. Zimbabwe, in Harare, certain parts of Zimbabwe are deserted. It looks like people chose to stay away. We are not sure whether that will translate into protest, but we saw the Minister of Home Affairs issuing a strong warning, a stern warning, that they will not tolerate lawlessness and they will not hesitate, the law enforcement agencies, to arrest those who will engage in acts of violence or break the law. But the report we're getting from Zimbabwe is that at least the areas that our colleague has been to, it's quiet. It looks like people chose not to go to work. But we don't know. The intention was to have a massive protest. Whether it will translate into that, we don't know. Or whether when people realize that it's quiet, there's lots of police in the streets, will then go to work. We are not sure, but we are monitoring those situations. And that's exactly what the former president is likely going to touch on. How do you deal with issues of challenges of Africa? You have problems in the DRC, you have problems in South Sudan, you have problems in Cabo Delgado. That is why even the ANC, the whole day on Saturday, it was the first time they just discussed the geopolitics as we see what's happening. And I think he will also touch on the bigger geopolitics. We saw yesterday Donald Trump issuing a stern warning to the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, in relation to Ukraine, and also again talking about Ukraine very hard and threatening to bomb Iran. And therefore, we will also be following that. And I think the former South African president will also go broader. And as we deal with what you've just spoken about, the story emerging from Zimbabwe, but we don't know what's going to happen. We are watching.
Sophie, thank you so much indeed for that insight. So, quite a very important day here in Pretoria, and obviously there is quite a lot really expected in terms of the myriad of issues around human rights, issues pertaining to peace and security as well. As you know, that the world is contending with all these issues. So the official program will kick off at 10 a.m. and we'll be just waiting with bated breath really to hear about all these issues, Ayanda.
Absolutely. It's becoming a cliche, but what an interesting time to be living in. But we'll certainly keep watching those developments with you. For now, Khayelihle Khumalo, live to us there from Pretoria.